The chandeliers of Verano Grand Ballroom glittered like 1,000 frozen stars. Soft orchestral music drifted through the warm evening air, wrapping the night in a luxurious glow. Every table was adorned with delicate white roses and gleaming crystal glasses. Guests, dressed in their finest gowns and tailored suits, sipped champagne and exchanged polite murmurs of anticipation. Tonight, the prestigious Arman and Wirawan families would unite through the marriage of their heirs, Alia Arman and Reza Wirawan. Alia stood in the center of the room, her elegant ivory gown hugging her slender frame, the soft lace sleeves brushing against her skin. Her heart hammered against her ribs, each beat echoing louder than the last. Her mother, Marissa Arman, observed from a distance with a cold, unreadable expression. Alia searched her mother's face for reassurance, but found none. Suddenly, a sharp clinking of glass silenced the crowd. All heads turned towards Marissa, who ascended the small flower-decked stage. The spotlight bathed her in a golden glow, making her appear almost regal. "My dear friends," Marissa's voice rang clear and steady. Tonight was meant to be a celebration of unity and love. However, sometimes, even the most carefully laid plans must be reconsidered. It is with a heavy heart that we, the Arman family, announce the withdrawal of our blessing for this engagement. A stunned silence fell over the ballroom, followed by a chorus of gasps and low whispers. Reza stiffened beside Alia, his grip on her hand tightening. Alia felt her vision blur for a moment, her cheeks burning under the weight of 100 curious stares. Every smile aimed at them now twisted into looks of pity or thinly disguised satisfaction. Marissa stepped down from the stage with a serene smile, leaving a gaping hole in the evening's festivities. No explanation. No apology. Only a brutal announcement that shattered Alia's world into splinters. The atmosphere shifted. Polite conversation gave way to scandalous gossip. Alia fought the urge to flee, to escape the suffocating room and the 1,000 invisible knives of judgment. She forced herself to stand tall, her chin lifted in quiet defiance. Deep inside, something colder than fear and stronger than humiliation began to grow. A seed of resolve. Alia vowed silently, in that glittering broken ballroom, that she would reclaim her honor. No matter what it took. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a new war. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting long shadows over the Arman estate. Inside, the grand halls that once echoed with laughter now lay silent, heavy with unspoken tension. Alia sat alone in the library, the scent of old books and polished wood surrounding her like a shield. The fire crackled weakly in the hearth, barely chasing away the creeping cold of betrayal. Her fingers traced the rim of a teacup absently as her mind replayed the scene at the ballroom again and again. Every glance, every murmur, every cruel smile carved itself deeper into her memory. She had thought that humiliation would be the worst part. But it was the silence from her own mother afterwards that stung the most. A knock broke the stillness. Without waiting for permission, her older brother, Nathan, stepped inside. His expression was grave, the playful spark in his eyes replaced by a steely seriousness Alia had rarely seen. "You need to know the truth," he said, voice low. He sat across from her, his gaze never wavering. Mother did not break the engagement because of anything Reza did. It was politics. Business. A bigger merger, more power. We were simply a pawn. Alia felt the words hit her like stones. So it was never about her happiness. Never about love. Only cold, calculated strategy. "There is talk," Nathan continued, leaning closer, "that mother plans to marry you off to someone else. Someone with ties even stronger than the Wirawan family." Rage bubbled beneath Alia's calm exterior. She had been nothing but an obedient daughter, carrying the family name with pride and dignity. And yet, they would trade her future like a commodity on a market floor. "I won't let them," Alia said, her voice sharper than she intended. Nathan gave a grim smile. "You may not have a choice. But if you fight, you will not be alone." For the first time since the disaster at the ballroom, a sliver of hope pierced through the gloom. Alia clenched her fists, feeling the fire within her start to grow. Let them plot and whisper behind their grand doors. Let them think she would bend and break. She would show them all that Alia Arman was not to be bartered or broken. This was no longer just about pride. This was about survival. The next morning, Alia awoke before dawn. A thick mist hung over the gardens, blurring the statues and rose bushes into ghostly shapes. She stood by her window, arms crossed, as she thought about Nathan's warning. If what he said was true, time was already against her. Alya decided she needed more than her brother's loyalty. She needed allies. Quietly, she dressed in simple clothes, tying her hair back into a low braid. She slipped out through the servants' entrance, careful to avoid the house guards. Her destination was the old town, where whispers traveled faster than the wind. Here, information was currency. People who owed favors could be persuaded to talk. Alya navigated the narrow alleys until she reached a small tailor's shop tucked between two crumbling buildings. It looked abandoned, but she knew better. Inside, a woman with sharp eyes and even sharper instincts waited. Her name was Sophia, an old friend from school, long estranged but never forgotten. Sophia had chosen a different path, one less gilded but far more powerful. "You look like hell," Sophia said by way of greeting, her voice dry. Alya gave a tight smile. "Good. That means I'm ready for war." Sophia leaned back, studying her. "War against who? Your family? The mighty Arman dynasty?" Alya nodded once, slow and deliberate. For a moment, Sophia said nothing. Then she laughed, low and humorless. "You're mad. But maybe that's exactly what you need to be." Alya sat down opposite her. "I need to know everything. Who Mother is dealing with. What promises were made. What leverage I have left." Sophia's eyes gleamed with interest. "You're serious. Deadly." Sophia steepled her fingers. "It will cost you." "I'll pay it," Alya said without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." Outside, the mist began to lift as the sun climbed higher. But inside that shop, in the small hidden world Alya had chosen to enter, a darker game had just begun. She would not play by their rules. She would write her own. Days passed in a blur of coded messages and secret meetings. Alya spent her nights poring over documents Sophia provided, her mind stitching together a puzzle that grew darker with every piece she added. One evening, as rain drummed against her window, Nathan burst into her study. His coat was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead. He slammed a folder onto her desk, his chest heaving. "You need to see this," he said, voice raw. Alya opened the folder with steady hands. Inside were photographs. Grainy but clear enough. Her mother, shaking hands with a man Alya recognized instantly. Marcus Devereux. A ruthless businessman known for swallowing companies whole, leaving nothing but debt and broken promises in his wake. More pages revealed contracts. Hidden agreements. Silent betrayals. Her mother had already signed away parts of their empire, trading pieces of their legacy for short-term power. Alya's stomach churned. "How much have we lost?" Nathan's eyes were hollow. "Enough that, if we don't act now, we'll lose everything." Alya stood, pacing the room. Each step echoed her rising fury. Betrayal was one thing. Selling the future for personal gain was another. She turned back to Nathan. "We strike now." Nathan hesitated. "Are you sure? This could destroy her." Alya's voice was ice. "She chose this path. We're just making sure she walks it to the end." The plan they formed was risky. Dangerous. But it was their only chance. With Sophia's network and Nathan's inside knowledge, they would expose the deals at the upcoming gala, where the elite would gather in shimmering dresses and false smiles. It would be a dance of ruin, and Alya intended to lead. That night, as the storm raged outside, Alya stood before the mirror, staring into her own fierce reflection. She was no longer a daughter pleading for love. She was a woman claiming what was rightfully hers. The night of the gala arrived with an air of electric tension. The city skyline blinked in the distance as Alya stepped out of the car, her black silk gown sweeping across the marble steps. A delicate silver mask hid half her face, her eyes sharp and unyielding behind it. The ballroom was a masterpiece of opulence. Crystal chandeliers bathed the guests in golden light, and an orchestra played softly, weaving a melody of false comfort. Power brokers, socialites, and hidden enemies moved across the floor like dancers in a sinister ballet. Nathan was already inside, blending into the crowd, while Sophia managed the surveillance from a discreet corner. Alya adjusted the small earpiece hidden by her hair, listening as Sophia's voice crackled through. "Target in sight. Marcus Devereux, talking to your mother near the terrace." Alya's chest tightened, but she glided forward, her steps confident. She needed the perfect moment, the perfect blow. Tonight was not for rage. It was for precision. As she moved through the throng, whispers followed her. Praise for her elegance, envy for her poise. No one saw the blade she carried, hidden not in her hand, but in her mind. She reached the edge of the terrace and leaned against the railing, pretending to admire the view. Just beyond the door, her mother's laughter rang out, brittle and hollow. Nathan's voice murmured in her ear. Now. Alya turned, stepping into the light. Conversations faltered. Glasses paused mid-air. In a few swift words, she exposed the contracts. The secret dealings. She held up a folder, copies of the very documents her mother had tried to bury. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Faces turned towards her mother, whose smile cracked, then shattered. I only protected what was ours, her mother hissed, eyes wild. You protected yourself, Alya replied coldly, and destroyed everything else. Security guards moved towards the terrace as Devereux tried to slip away. Nathan intercepted him with a quiet threat. Sophia's people ensured that every damning word spoken was recorded and broadcast across the private feeds of every important guest. The empire her mother built on lies began to crumble, right there among glittering chandeliers and silken masks. And Alya, at the center of it all, stood victorious. The morning after the gala broke with gray skies and a steady drizzle. Alya stood by the window of her modest apartment, watching the city blur under the rain. The phone on her table buzzed relentlessly with messages. Headlines, news alerts, the public fallout of the scandal she had ignited. Her mother had resigned from every board within hours. Marcus Devereux had been detained for financial crimes. The once mighty empire was in freefall. Nathan leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, while Sophia typed away on her laptop, coordinating the last phase of their plan. You did it, Nathan said quietly. Alya didn't smile. Victory felt heavier than she had imagined. Like carrying the ruins of a castle she had toppled with her own hands. Sophia glanced up. Now comes the hard part. Rebuilding. Alya nodded. We rebuild it clean. No shadows. No debts. The three of them worked late into the afternoon, mapping out new leadership structures, submitting evidence to authorities, preparing for the long and painful recovery the company, and its people, would need. But the cost had been high. Alya's name was now etched in controversy. Betrayer to some, savior to others. And though the media tried to paint her story in black and white, she knew the truth lived somewhere in the uneasy gray between. As twilight fell, Alya visited her father's grave. She knelt on the damp grass, the rain soaking her hair and clothes, yet she did not move. I kept my promise, she whispered. The wind carried her words away, a silent witness to the end of one war and the beginning of another. From the ashes of betrayal, a new empire would rise. And Alya would make sure it stood on truth, even if it meant fighting every day for the rest of her life. Weeks turned into months, and the world slowly adjusted to the downfall of the Devereux dynasty. Alya kept her head low, steering the remnants of the company through the storm. She refused all media interviews, declined awards, and ignored the sudden influx of invitations from political and corporate circles. True power, she realized, was quiet. It moved without fanfare. It changed lives without needing to be seen. Nathan and Sophia became her most trusted allies. Together, they restructured the company under a new name, Verity Holdings. A reminder that truth would be their only currency from now on. Yet, peace did not come easily. Former enemies lurked in the shadows, whispering rumors and planning revenge. Lawsuits piled up, investigations reopened, and Alya spent many nights poring over documents, uncovering the rot that had festered under her family's reign for decades. In those sleepless hours, she sometimes questioned her path. Would it have been easier to disappear, to let the empire collapse and walk away? But then she would remember the workers who depended on them, the clients who had trusted them, and the promises she had made, not just to her father, but to herself. One evening, as Alya walked through the company's newly renovated headquarters, open, filled with light, no longer the cold fortress it once was, she paused before a wall where the names of every employee were engraved. Not the executives. Not the shareholders. The workers. She smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Alya had not just broken a dynasty. She had reshaped it. The silent reign had begun. And it would not be ruled by fear, but by integrity. The years rolled on, and Verity Holdings flourished quietly under Alia's leadership. Without the weight of the Devereux name, she moved freely, crafting deals based on trust and rebuilding relationships that had once been poisoned by greed. The world, however, did not forget her. In the corridors of power, they spoke her name in hushed tones. In classrooms, her story became a case study. In boardrooms, her methods were dissected, admired, and sometimes feared. But Alia never returned to the spotlight. She chose a different kind of legacy, one that would ripple silently through generations. Nathan and Sophia continued by her side, their loyalty bound not by contracts or shares, but by a shared dream, a dream born from ashes, nourished by truth. On a crisp autumn morning, Alia stood on the balcony of her modest home, overlooking a city that pulsed with new life. She thought about the past, about the empire she had dismantled and the one she had built. No statues would be raised in her honor. No songs would be written. Yet, in the quiet success of honest workers, in the steady growth of businesses founded on principle, in the lives healed from the wounds her family had once inflicted, her legacy lived. As the sun rose higher, Alia closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The air tasted of rain and promise. A new dawn had arrived. And it belonged to those who dared to whisper, rather than shout, their way into history. The silent revolution was complete.